I think I'll manage.
Will you though?
I don't know.
What if we just talked in accents all the time?
Alright. And
Bloody hell.
we already have to cut the video. 2 seconds after
Okay.
starting. We have to cut all
We got team.
that. Alright. Camera, ready. Mic, ready.
R for racing mode.
This is racing mode. I can't believe they let me in. I can't believe they let me speak to the conference. Have you ever sat down and really think about that?
Me neither. Who even likes you?
I know.
God.
For letting me speak at a national conference. They're gonna regret it. There's a Starbucks right there, and
And
there's a
another
Starbucks
one.
right there.
Do you think one's a front?
Yeah, is there a mattress firm right next to that one and right next to that one? Because there probably is.
We're not
Okay.
here to talk about sex trafficking. We're here to talk about conspiracy theories.
Mattress firm. There are mattress firms everywhere. There are mattress firms next to mattress firms that are next to a mattress firm that is inside of a mattress firm.
It's like a Russian doll.
Wait, let's actually do the video.
Okay.
We're already moving. We don't have enough time.
We're not moving. This is a red light.
Okay, it was... Wait. They need another question because we had to redo. We already did this whole video, and then
We goofed.
yeah, most of it was not usable because we were either swearing, talking about something that had nothing to do with the questions, or well, that's about it, right? Is there another reason?
No, we'll just keep it at that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was basically it. So we're redoing it. We're picking 3 of our favorite questions. It was the question about. What was the question?
Okay, there's one. I think this is my favorite.
So we're in Minnesota right now. I forgot to tell them
Oh.
because they probably need to go. They need to go. They need to know. I swear, dude, I'm like dyslexic right now, and I'm about to go talk in front of a bunch of people at a conference. Which brings me to what I was gonna say. We're in Minnesota because, for some ungodly reason, I'm speaking at a conference, and it's all about like sex trafficking. And my job is basically to guilt nonprofits and the church into dumping their money into like combating sex trafficking. So on Instagram, I asked this question.
Oh, I can't see the question.
It was basically like, it was if you could ask one question having to do with the issue of sex trafficking, what would the question be? Dude, this dude at the bus stop is like trying to wave somebody over. He's trying to wave at that bus. Yo, that's going the other way. Does he know how buses work? Whatever.
This is why we didn't get to the first video.
This is why. Okay, focus. Okay.
Focusing.
So we picked 3 of our favorite questions because honestly, we could not. We have horrible attention spans, as you can already see. So we picked 3 of our favorite questions to answer, and this is the first one.
Trafficking is not about children only and not about girls only. So why do very few organizations help develop conscious, like A21, for example?
A21, I assume, is either a nonprofit or an organization that like helps bring boys out of sex trafficking. And this user is essentially asking, like, why don't we focus on boys? Because a lot of people don't even think boys are trafficked, like boys and men. All we talk about is women being trafficked. So that's pretty much what they're asking.
First of all, on the way here, ironically enough, I saw a billboard that said that 1 in 10 sexually abused peoples were males. Peoples. I said that.
One
Humans.
person is not a peoples.
1 in 10 peoples.
Oh,
1 in 10 persons
Okay.
are males that are assaulted sexually.
Assaulted? Like...
No, not assaulted. Not salt and pepper.
Oh,
but
thanks. The one parking spot and you have a cart right in the middle.
the problems we have
Anyways,
in
continue.
today's world. Nobody talks about it. Nobody. You never hear stories about young boys being abducted. You never hear stories about young men being trafficked. You don't ever see movies having to do with men being trafficked, or only one movie I've seen, and I've watched a lot of movies, I'm a movie person. Only one movie have I seen that had to do with the little boy being abused, and it was not even sexually. They're all women. Nobody wants to talk about boys being abused, sexually especially. It has a lot to do with our culture, and a lot to do with the way we view men.
From my experience with that, because one of the reasons they asked me to do this was because I was around a lot of sex trafficking as a kid. The thing with boys is like, by the time a lot of people get out of it, they're like grown, or at least teenage years. And like she said, like culture, men are supposed to be masculine and not have been taken advantage of. So it's really like, it comes down to like guilt, shame, and like self-image and how people view you and all that stuff. And we don't want to talk about that. Men don't want to admit to that. So even the statistics that we have about like how many men are, you know, bought and sold in sex slavery, they're probably not true. It's probably a lot more, because most men, when they get out, will not come forward about it. They won't ask for help. They won't be a part of like surveys or statistics. They won't take classes. They won't do any of it. They just want it to like not exist.
I mean, think about how many girls don't want to talk about it, who don't want to confront the trauma.
And with women, it's like, I don't want to say it's okay to talk about it, but like it is. It's like, yeah, it's accepted.
Yeah.
You can talk about it, and people won't look at you weird or like judge you. I don't know. You guys know what we're saying. But with men, it's different. There's a stigma around it, especially because it's sexual, and usually because like these men are heterosexual, and in a lot of cases, in probably most cases, the men are abused by men. So then you add the whole homophobic shit on top of it, and it just gets weird. So I think that's the primary reason we don't talk about it. All that stuff. It's not really accepted. I think in like 20 years, it'll be vastly different. But 20 years ago, sex trafficking wasn't talked about at all. And it was still happening. So it's just, I don't know. Culture's got to change. But all the guys who do come forward are slowly changing that and making it more acceptable and okay for like the next men to do it. Sit on your booty. On the booty.
Can you please look at how...
Sit on the booty.
I need you to look at how Blue is sitting right now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay. Why isn't anyone really paying attention to it like people do when it comes to politics and sports? Because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to admit it, that it's happening. Nobody wants to admit that it's happening in their communities. Nobody wants to admit that it's happened to them. Nobody wants to talk about it. The same way that back in the 50s, nobody talked about petty street crimes. It didn't happen. It's the same concept. It just didn't happen. That's why older generations say that they didn't have the kind of crime that we have nowadays. They did, but nobody talked about it. So nonetheless, is it easier to talk about things that people want to talk about? Nobody really wants to talk about somebody being sexually abused or sold into sex trafficking. It's so much easier to talk about Dallas Cowboys. It's easier to talk about your favorite hockey team, and you know, it's lighter. It's the same reason why people don't like watch the news, because it brings them down. It makes them sad. Nobody wants to be sad, so they don't.
Because we're selfish assholes.
Thank you.
It's pretty much
basically.
Dude, when you talk about it, it becomes real. And when something's real, like, people with any sort of moral values are gonna need to do something about it. And that means work. And usually, honestly, to be able to like seriously help people because of the way society and the world functions, is you have to put money into it. Think about how much money like avid sports fans spend on jerseys and food, like concessions at the arena or whatever, and like seats and boxing. They spend hundreds of dollars because you're going to spend money on the things that you value and the things that you care about. We don't want to pay attention to it because then it comes real, and then we actually we have to do something about it. Nobody wants to do that.
As for politics, why we don't pay attention to it like we do politics is because it's all over the news 24/7. You will always know everything that is going on in the White House, down to what kind of toilet paper they use in Trump's residence.
I almost bought my sister this toilet paper that has Trump's face on every sheet of it. I think the easiest and most understandable way to sum that all up would just be, it just like you said, is it becomes real. And when something becomes real, we actually have to like act on it. And we have to admit that it happens here. For a long time, it was like we had no problem talking about sex trafficking in foreign places. We have no problem talking about like Americans being abducted and all that stuff. And you and I talked about that, but we don't want to talk about that in America. And even when we do, like, honestly, people don't believe it. It's been talked about for a long time. People have been complaining about sex trafficking for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until like 5 to maybe 8 years ago that people actually started doing something about it, because nobody wanted to admit that it was actually happening here. Because then it comes real. And then we actually have to do something about it. And people don't want to work here. And we don't want to admit that, like, people are being raped on a daily basis in your neighborhood. What is punch?
Yeah, next question.
I would hate you, but I don't want to get arrested.
Ow.
Shut up.
Alright, how do you help combat it? Talk about it.
That's right.
Talk about it. That's the biggest thing. Other than if you're really wanting to do something about it, there's always organizations around somewhere. Somewhere there's going to be an organization. Anybody can use Google. People use Google to find out what kind of laundry detergent is on sale this week at the shopping store. So if you use Google to do something useful, like research organizations around you, or not even around you, whatever the case may be, that contribute to limiting sex trafficking as a whole. There's always organizations, there's always people that want to help people. You just have to find them. Especially if you don't know what to do about it, because a lot of people don't know what to do about it. Because once you help that person that's in sex trafficking, you help them out, it's just, you're better at explaining that than I am.
Yeah, no, yeah. Talk about it. That's been your big spiel. So talk about
it.
The next thing, what she was getting at is what people are finally starting to actually figure out how to do, and it's one of the church's biggest mistakes right now, is they're starting to put these teams together to like rescue men and women out of this, and then they get these people, which is great, but then they have no idea what to do with them. So they're calling other organizations being like, hey, we have this girl here, or we have this guy here, what do we do with them? And these people, they end up going back to sex trafficking, like voluntarily, but involuntarily, just because they don't know anything else. They don't have a social security card, they don't have an ID, so they can't get an apartment, they can't get a job, like they can't be functioning people. They just go to being homeless, which in some cases, like, it's just you're back in the same place you were. So these people end up going back to what they know, and what, they get a roof over their head, they get food, they get all their like survival needs met. But it's because we don't have like a proper system in place. So people are finally, in organizations, are finally starting to like put the next steps together, which is something that we're talking about at the conference too, is once you get the people out, what do you do with them then? So there's organizations that will like educate the people so they can get a degree, and so that they can like actually be functioning members of society. There's organizations that will help you get a social, your card, the social security card, help you get an ID, all that stuff. It's reintegration back into society, so that we're not just pulling you out and then being like, cool, you're rescued, have a great life. Because they just go back. They don't know anything else, especially because a lot of these people are taken when they're kids. So they really don't know anything else. So that's the biggest thing that's like happening from what I can gather right now within the United States as pertains to this, about how to stop it. And I think beyond that, it's just like finding housing and all that stuff. And that's something that we really lack, is transitional housing. We don't have anywhere to like place these girls and guys.
Nonetheless, do we not have funding?
Yeah, which all comes down to funding. It's because people aren't spending money, which is why we're guilty in the church and nonprofits and spending money on it.
Ultimately. Okay.
You got it?
Newest first. Why can't you just...
Why can't you just what?
Why can't you just see all the comments? Why does it have to be newest first? Top comments. Read replies. It should just all be there.
Yeah, but that's like they are all there. You just have to... It's asking you what order you want them in.
The order in which you were asked? Why isn't that an option? So
that would be newest first. So the newest would be at the top, and the oldest would be at the bottom. Where?
Right there.
Oh my god, that's such a typical, stereotypical freaking farm dog.